There's a moment, usually around age 8, when every kid realizes that imaginary friends are supposed to make life easier. They're fun, they're comforting, they're the emotional support pets you don't have to feed. But Bloo? Blue is what happens when a child's imagination takes a wrong turn down a dark alley and comes back with trauma it cannot explain. From the outside, Blue looks like a simple, happy blue whatever he is. A cute blob with a goofy smile. A buddy. A pal. A living pillow with limbs. But peel back the pastel colors, and what you get isn't joy, it's the animated embodiment of stress. Existential stress. The kind of stress adults pay therapists embarrassing amounts of money to identify. Because here's the truth nobody in foster seems to admit. Blue didn't choose this life. He didn't choose to be born into constant scrutiny. He didn't choose to become the emotional punching bag for a household designed by an architect who clearly hated mental stability. He didn't choose any of it. He was manifested into it. Imagine waking up one day and learning that your entire purpose in existence is to make a single child happy forever. No breaks, no sick days, no existential downtime. Just pure pressure in the shape of a tiny blue cylinder. And the best part? Everyone expects you to be perfect at it. Because if Blue makes one mistake, just one, he's suddenly the problem, the menace, the reason this place can't have nice things. It's amazing how fast an imaginary friend can go from emotional support companion to public enemy number one. And that's where the nightmare begins. Every second of Blue's life is a tightrope walk between trying to be fun, trying not to get blamed for everything, and trying not to get thrown into the foster home equivalent of solitary confinement because he breathed too loudly near Mr. Harriman. So, yeah, when people say Blue is chaotic, what they actually mean is he's coping. Now that we've lifted the curtain on Blue's manufactured happiness, let's step deeper into the psychological labyrinth he never asked to be born into, starting with the expectations that crush him daily. If Blue's life had a loading screen, it would say, Objective, be perfect, penalty for failure, everything. Because from the moment he was created, Blue wasn't just imagined, he was assigned. Assigned to be Mac's best friend, moral compass, emotional support system, entertainment center, bad decision generator, and part-time babysitter. All at once, with zero training and zero say in the matter. And look, being a kid's imaginary friend sounds cute in theory until you realize it comes with the same expectations as being a full-time parent, life coach, and emotional sponge, but without the paycheck or legal rights. Mac wants him to behave. The house wants him to behave. Society wants him to behave. But behavior is not Blue's brand. He was literally imagined by an 8-year-old whose personality is 70% sugar and 30% emotional repression. So when everyone expects Blue to be this idealized, responsible, well-behaved imaginary figure, it's like asking a firecracker to quietly contemplate its place in the universe instead of exploding. It's not going to happen. It can't happen. But that doesn't stop anyone from expecting it anyway. And the worst part? Every mistake Bloo makes, every impulsive decision, every tiny lapse in judgment instantly becomes proof that he's the problem. Like they forgot he was created by a child, not woven together in a factory that also makes moral compasses and tax accountants. Even when Bloo tries to be good, which, yes, occasionally happens, it doesn't matter. He could save the house from total destruction, and 5 minutes later, someone would blame him because a spoon went missing from the kitchen. The expectations are impossible, the standards are imaginary, and the emotional toll is real. But Bloo can't complain. Imaginary friends aren't allowed to have burnout, or self-doubt, or mental health. He's supposed to smile, wave, and be the wholesome little buddy everyone remembers from the commercials that don't exist. But inside, he's tired. Tired of performing. Tired of pretending. Tired of everyone wanting a better Bloo, like he's a broken appliance that needs updating. And what happens when all those expectations start crushing him? Simple. He breaks. Loudly, dramatically, and usually in a way that gets him grounded. Which brings us to the place where Bloo's misery reaches new levels of chaos, the house he's forced to live in. If you've ever wondered what it feels like to live inside a psychological experiment designed by a committee that hates peace, welcome to Bloo's everyday reality. Foster's home for imaginary friends, a place that looks whimsical on the outside, but radiates the emotional stability of a haunted IKEA on the inside. Because this house isn't a home, it's a containment facility, a pastel-colored asylum where every resident is one minor inconvenience away from a full emotional meltdown. And Bloo lives smack in the middle of that ticking bomb, trying to pretend he's okay while chaos screams in every direction. Take the residents, for example. There's Wilt, the walking embodiment of guilt and apologetic trauma. Eduardo, a gentle giant who looks like he escaped from a nightmare factory, but cries when someone raises their voice. Coco, a bird-plane plant thing who speaks in riddles and lays eggs containing objects that absolutely should not exist. And Madame Foster, an elderly woman with way too much energy for someone whose joints should legally be allowed to retire. And presiding over it all, Mr. Harriman, a giant rabbit with the emotional rigidity of a prison warden and the rules of a man who once lost an argument and never emotionally recovered. Every breath in that house is regulated, every move supervised, every crumb of food policed like it's contraband. So imagine being Bloo, impulsive, restless, allergic to authority, and trying to survive in a place where even thinking about fun is probably against subsection 4B of the Imaginary Friend Conduct Manual. Nothing in this house makes sense. The hallways stretch like a labyrinth. The rooms feel alive in the worst possible way. And the residents? They multiply, mutate, and manifest drama faster than Bloo can offend them, which is impressive considering he can offend someone just by existing. And through all of this, Bloo is expected to stay calm, behave, blend in. But how do you blend into a house that's basically a cartoon Hunger Games arena where everyone is a contestant and nobody knows the rules? Living in Foster's means living in survival mode, 24/7, not because Bloo wants to cause trouble, though he does frequently, but because the environment around him is built to collapse at random intervals. And when it does collapse, guess who gets blamed? Before we get there, let's talk about the one person who was supposed to make Bloo's life easier and instead turned it into an emotional roller coaster with no seatbelt. If Bloo ever writes a memoir, Chapter 1 will simply read, Mac left. Again. Because for all the chaos inside Foster's, nothing destabilizes Bloo more than the simple fact that his creator, the one person who's supposed to understand him, drops him off like a gym bag every single day, only to pick him up when it's convenient. Mac loves Bloo, sure, but emotional consistency? Let's just say the kid treats responsibility the same way he treats vegetables. He acknowledges they exist, but refuses to engage. Imagine being a creature whose entire purpose is tied to one human, and that human can only visit after school hours. Not because he doesn't care, but because society has decided that imaginary friends require daycare with the strictness of a military base. Every morning, Bloo watches Mac walk away, promising he'll be back later, and every day Bloo pretends that later doesn't feel like abandonment. Like, of course he gets clingy. Of course he gets jealous. Of course he spirals into chaos the second Mac is gone. What did everyone expect? Therapy? He's imaginary. Insurance won't cover that. Mac is the emotional equivalent of a part-time parent. Loving when present, devastating when absent, and Bloo feels every second of that absence. He clings, he panics, he acts out. He becomes a blue siren, wailing for attention in a house full of creatures that definitely do not want to give it to him. And the worst part? Mac expects Bloo to behave like a stable, responsible adult, while Mac himself is a 12-year-old running purely on panic, sugar, and repressed childhood anxiety. The emotional irony is so strong it might qualify as a renewable energy source. Mac says, "Bloo, don't get into trouble." Bloo hears, "I'm leaving you with unstable strangers for 8 hours. Don't implode while I'm gone." It's a miracle Bloo hasn't developed abandonment-induced superpowers by now. But here's the real tragedy. Bloo doesn't resent Mac. He lives for him. He orbits Mac like a clingy blue moon trapped in the gravitational pull of a child who has no idea how much control he holds over a sentient being's emotional well-being. Which raises a question Foster's never answers. If your entire existence hinges on one child's affection, what happens when that affection gets divided, threatened, or put at risk? Luckily, and by luckily I mean disastrously, the house makes sure Bloo never gets to answer that peacefully. Because at Foster's, emotional safety is just another rule Mr. Harriman probably banned in 1978. Bloo didn't just stumble into misery. He was handed a lifetime subscription to it. Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends runs on rules, protocols, and paperwork that could make a human weep. And Bloo? He's property. Not a resident, not a friend, property. Which means every action, every misstep, every burst of personality he exhibits is automatically cataloged, judged, and filed away like it's evidence in some sad animated courtroom drama. Imagine waking up knowing that no matter what you do, be heroic, be funny, be charming, be quiet, someone somewhere is ready to tell you it wasn't good enough. Bloo lives in a world where approval is bureaucratic, love is conditional, survival requires paperwork he can't read. The house itself is a machine designed to extract maximum chaos from minimum compliance. Rules about nap schedules, snack distribution, and safe play zones, they all exist. And they all exist to ensure that Bloo never has a moment's peace. But the thing about living in a system like this, the trauma compounds. One wrong move and suddenly Bloo is the villain. One misplaced squeak and it's disciplinary action. One burst of laughter at the wrong time, instant existential crisis. And let's be clear, Bloo doesn't exactly thrive under pressure. He panics, he schemes, he manipulates, he runs, Mostly he screams internally while everyone around him pretends that his emotional distress is either funny or irrelevant. The house is a testing ground for patience, obedience, and sanity. 3 things imaginary friends are supposed to have in abundance. Spoiler alert, Bloo does not. And why would he? He was created for chaos. He was born to exist at the intersection of rules and rebellion, constantly punished for following the wrong path, which is literally every path because the system is arbitrary and cruel. Bloo's trauma is a feedback loop. The system stresses him, he reacts, the system punishes him, he reacts harder, repeat ad infinitum. And somewhere along the way, the absurdity becomes comedy for everyone else. Look at the blue blob flipping out again. Yes, laugh. That's exactly what Foster's is for, watching a sentient being teeter on the edge of emotional collapse as entertainment. And speaking of entertainment, at Foster's, Bloo doesn't just navigate rules and responsibilities, he navigates social annihilation. Because in this pastel-colored hell, every resident has a PhD in blame, a master's in manipulation, and a minor in overreacting. And guess who's their favorite target? That's right, Bloo. Every accident, every broken vase, every spilled cup of juice isn't just a mess, it's a statement. A statement that Bloo is the problem. A statement that he's reckless, selfish, untrustworthy, chaotic, unfixable. The house doesn't forgive, and the residents certainly don't. They don't even pause to consider context. Bloo's existence alone is enough to draw judgment, and judgment is brutal. Wilt sighs. Eduardo growls. Coco just lays an egg somewhere that'll explode later. And the humans, Mr. Harriman, absolutely merciless. Every inch Bloo moves in this house is scrutinized. Every twitch, every laugh, every mischievous glint in his eye is evidence of some impending catastrophe that he didn't actually cause, but will be blamed for anyway. And it's exhausting. Bloo is constantly performing emotional acrobatics, tiptoeing around the wrath of a society that can't stand him, even though he didn't ask to exist in it. He's the scapegoat for every inconvenience, the punchline for every joke, the target for every frustration. It's social judgment on steroids, with no off switch and no mercy. But here's the twist. Bloo doesn't exactly have the luxury of surrender. He can't isolate himself. He can't disappear. He's stuck orbiting this ecosystem of judgment, manipulation, and absurd expectation. So what does he do? He fights back. He schemes. He throws tantrums that would make a full-grown adult weep in shame. The house isn't just a building. It's a courtroom, a circus, and a gladiator arena all at once. And Bloo? Bloo is both the accused and the main attraction. Every misstep fuels the narrative that he is inherently problematic. Every success is ignored or chalked up to luck. It's relentless. It's absurd. And it's hilarious if you have the kind of dark sense of humor that finds tragedy in pastel animation. But being socially condemned all the time is only half the fun. The other half is having a personality that's too big for your own good. Bloo isn't just chaotic. He's loud, he's bold, he's unforgettable. Which sounds great on paper, right? Everyone loves a character with personality. Except in a house where personality is a liability, and every expression, every joke, every wild idea becomes a weapon pointed back at you. Being charismatic in Foster's is like showing up to a pyromaniac's barbecue wearing a suit made of gasoline. No one thanks you for it. No one applauds your energy. They just wait. Wait for the moment when your charm accidentally breaks a rule or triggers someone else's panic attack. And that moment always comes. Always. Because chaos follows Bloo like a shadow he didn't ask for. He's forced to be funny, entertaining, outrageous, because if he isn't, he's boring. And if he's boring, he's irrelevant. And if he's irrelevant, what's the point of existing at all? This pressure to perform emotionally, socially, and comically creates a feedback loop that is both brilliant and horrifying. Every attempt to be heroic is misinterpreted. Every joke is scrutinized. Every scheme, okay, sometimes it actually works, but then someone gets hurt and suddenly Bloo is the villain again. It's a never-ending cycle of self-destruction disguised as entertainment. The cruel irony? Bloo's personality is his survival mechanism. His humor, his exaggeration, his ego, they all exist to keep him sane in an insane house. And yet the very traits that protect him emotionally are the traits everyone else uses to punish him. It's like being handed a life vest that's actually made of anvils. Imagine living in a place where your natural charisma is criminal, your instincts are evidence, and your survival tactics are constantly rebranded as misbehavior. That's Bloo. That's his reality. And it's exhausting. Yet despite it all, there's something irresistibly magnetic about his suffering. He's chaotic, yes, but you can't look away. You can't help but laugh at the absurdity of a world so cruel it punishes a sentient blob for being exactly what it is: alive, messy, and full of personality. And as we move forward, we reach the part where the absurdity is laid bare, the ultimate comedy of despair that is Bloo's life. Here's the brutal truth. Bloo's misery is the show. Every tantrum, every panicked escape, every scheme gone wrong is consumed as entertainment. And Foster's? It's happy to oblige. The house doesn't just tolerate chaos, it celebrates it. Bloo is simultaneously the protagonist, the comic relief, and the cautionary tale, all wrapped into one Bloo spherical package. It's tragic-comic perfection. Bloo screams, the other characters gasp, and the audience laughs. Not because it's healthy, not because it's wholesome, but because it's absurd. Because in a house where rules, expectations, and emotional trauma collide, the only thing you can do is watch and laugh. And yes, sometimes you cringe too, but that's part of the twisted magic. Every failure Bloo experiences becomes material. A broken vase? Hilarious. A sabotaged plan? Comedy gold. An emotional meltdown in front of Mac? Priceless. And the genius of it all? Bloo doesn't even realize he's the punchline most of the time. He's too busy surviving, scheming, panicking, and occasionally trying to enjoy life in the one way he knows how, by being himself. And here's the kicker. You can't pity him without laughing. His suffering is so over the top, so exaggerated that empathy and hilarity collide. You recognize yourself in his struggles. Maybe not the blue blob part, but the chaos, the fear of failure, the constant pressure to perform while being judged. It's painfully relatable. The world of Foster's is a stage. Bloo is both actor and victim. And the audience? They get to sit back and watch a perfectly orchestrated circus of suffering. Except, unlike a circus, you can't leave. There's no intermission. Bloo is always there, screaming, scheming, panicking, existing in pure, raw, comedic despair. And yet, somehow, through all the chaos, all the judgment, all the trauma, Bloo survives. He schemes, he fails, he gets up, he panics again. And we, the audience, laugh and gasp in equal measure. Because we see the tragedy of a being trapped in an absurd world. And we also see the brilliance of his resilience. Next, we'll dive into the existential core of Bloo's identity, the part he never really understands himself. Who is Bloo, really? Bloo doesn't have the luxury of a clear identity. Is he a friend, a companion, a child's toy, a troublemaker, a prisoner, a clown? Yes, all of the above, and none of them at the same time. Being Bloo is living in a constant state of existential ambiguity. He's loved, but only conditionally. He's free, but only when no one is watching. He's clever, but his cleverness is always punished. He exists in a paradox where every action, thought, and emotion is simultaneously too much and not enough. Imagine being created to fill a role that keeps shifting every day. One minute, you're a source of joy. The next, you're a liability. Your personality, too big. Your ideas, too dangerous. Your freedom, non-existent. The house, the rules, the residence, even Mac, none of it allows you to exist as just you. And Bloo, he tries. He tries to be funny. He tries to be clever. He tries to survive. And in trying, he creates more chaos, more blame, more absurdity. It's a never-ending loop, a feedback system designed to test the limits of one Bloo blob's emotional endurance. But in that chaos, there's beauty. Bloo is a study in resilience, even if he doesn't know it. He laughs in the face of disaster. He schemes when it would be easier to give up. He panics, yes, but he keeps moving forward. Every tantrum, every failed plan, every meltdown is not just survival, it's defiance. And that's the cruel brilliance of Foster's. The world treats Bloo like a joke, but beneath the surface, he's a living testament to the absurdity of existence. A creature caught between expectations and reality, chaos and control, humor and despair. He's everything we fear about ourselves distilled into one small blue spherical package. So if when you watch him scream, manipulate, panic, or cry, remember, it's not just comedy, it's survival. It's tragedy disguised as entertainment. And somehow, it's impossible not to root for him anyway. So next time you see Bloo spinning, scheming, screaming, or crying in pastel chaos, remember, that's not just mischief, it's survival. Every tantrum, every failed scheme, every panicked escape is proof that he's enduring a world that was never designed for him to exist. Yet he does anyway. He persists, he panics, he performs, he survives. And somehow, we can't look away. Bloo's life is absurd, unfair, and completely chaotic. But it's also hilarious. Because the universe has no sympathy, the house has no rules that make sense, and yet Bloo continues to exist in all his ridiculous, desperate glory. And maybe that's the lesson here. Life is unfair, unpredictable, and occasionally cruel, but you keep going anyway, even if you're a blue blob with a personality too big for your own good. So if this deep dive into Bloo's tragic, hilarious existence made you laugh, cringe, or question your own sanity, do what any responsible cartoon enthusiast would. Hit that like button. Subscribe for more explorations of absurd, traumatized cartoon characters, and let us know in the comments which character's misery you want us to analyze next, because apparently we thrive on watching fictional trauma unfold in Technicolor. Remember, Bloo isn't just a cartoon. He's a warning, a beacon of chaos, anxiety, and the darkly humorous truth that sometimes surviving is far more complicated than it should be. And the next time someone tells you that being charismatic, bold, or loud is a gift, just think of Bloo and smile nervously, because that gift can also be a curse.